Hello, lovelies. Oh, look, we have a hen. Photo bomber. Today we are going to be diving into what keeps us from feeling centered and how we can get more focused on anchoring into who we are. Now, with this kit, it was very, very clear that the negative emotion that we were overcoming was the negative emotion of not being able to feel grounded, to feeling that sense. Hello, building girl. To feeling that sense of being scattywampus, to being uncertain, to being fearful. Um, yeah, she agrees. See, that's the golden girl. She agrees. That's her name. To feeling uncertain, to feeling like so much chaos is going on. And when we're surrounded by chaos, we think a lot of times that all we have to do is get grounded. And if we can get grounded, then we can anchor in and then we can handle everything. The problem with that is a lot of times when we get grounded, if you think about it when you were a kid, it was not a good thing. It's got to be somewhere in our unconscious that it's not a good thing, which is why so many of us resist feeling grounded. When we are grounding ourselves, sometimes what we're doing is we're making ourselves immovable. We make ourselves to the point where to change or to alter or to go with the flow would be too hard and too big of a movement. And so being very leery and careful of when you are trying to get grounded, asking yourself, am I trying to anchor myself into a heavy, dense, stubborn state so that I don't have to move? Because if we're doing that, the whole world is going to change around us and we stay the same. Now, there are a lot of angles to take feeling grounded. For example, the trees. All of the trees around us, they don't necessarily move, except for the banyan trees that will create roots and actually move themselves. And then they pull up and let the old roots die and they build new roots and they can actually move to a better spot if they want to. And beautiful magic of trees, but they're not going to travel the globe and they're not going to move miles and miles away. Unless you're an aspen and then you do it by root. So the trees will move when they feel called to move in certain cases, but mostly what they're doing is they're centering where they are and then they're growing and expanding. So they're not even feeling grounded and stuck and not going to move or change. They're going to expand and they're going to grow. So as we're focused on why we're needing to center and watching the chaos around us, it's very important that we go, okay, what if I just be like the tree? I should show you the tree here, but there we go. There's a tree. Oh, and then there's our girl. She she must have been pinging me that she wanted to be in it. So here's our tree. So the tree can't move. No matter what she does, this tree is not going anywhere. This beautiful apricot tree. Yet she can expand her branches up. She can expand her roots out. She can create movement. She could choose out and die completely. She can choose to produce lots of fruit and regrow and expand herself and her influence and create more around her. So when we think of grounding, a lot of times we think of rooting in like the tree. So if you are going to focus on rooting in and grounding, I recommend utilizing the tree. And in doing so, I mostly recommend leaning your back up against a tree, sitting with your butt on the earth, open your legs, open your hands, and just breathe deep. And feel all of that wisdom that tree can invoke in you. The trees have a lot of information. They don't always speak in words, but they do have a lot of information. So, back to feeling centered. When we want to feel centered, the reason why we chose to go with centered instead of grounded is also because a lot of people, when they're wanting to feel grounded, they will anchor to negative emotions in order to feel dense. And sometimes we confuse density with grounding. Anything that brings your vibration lower feels like it's bringing it lower to the earth, but it's actually bringing it lower in a dense negative vibration rather than a high alignment positive. That's why I say when you lean on a tree, you can have the opportunity to tune in and alchemize with that tree. We're changing the earth, and as the earth evolves and changes its frequency, so do our plants, and the more we connect with our plants, the more they can shift and change with us. So when we're thinking of centering ourselves, we want to center ourselves in a way of surrender, not servitude, not subserviency, and definitely not in a way of giving up. So when I think of surrender and flow, I love water, and especially entering into the age of Aquarius, a lot of our lack of ability to feel grounded is because we are in a sense of water. So even people who are normally very, very, very grounded, like myself, because I'm an earth, fire. I love earth and I have just enough fire. So usually in a room full of flowy, airy fairies, I can always anchor and ground the entire group. However, our earth is going through a shift. The energies are going through a shift. And because of that, a lot of our ability to ground is going through a shift. And so people who are usually really good at anchoring into the earth aren't able to do so quite as easily. And so the key is to actually anchor into ourselves. And then we become that magnetic gravitational force. And then everything spins around us. Now, the world would have you believe that if you feel like here's you in the earth and everything spins around you, that you're being selfish. It's not true. You're being centered in who you are, allowing all of this chaos to flow around and not change or move you. And if you choose to change and move, you can go anywhere and everybody else will just continue circulating in their own way. The other part that's really important with this is it doesn't mean that you're isolated and alone. It means that you're centered in who you are. It's as if we create these rainbow bridges of energy, ding, from one ball to another. So I become my own centered ball, you're your own centered ball, and together we can connect on those little bridges. And then we get even deeper and we can connect to the earth on that same way and connect to her core rather than all of the distractions on the surface. So as we envision that, we can look at focusing on centering. So as you go through the meditations and as you're tuning in and you're utilizing the things in your kit, you want to make sure that you are focusing on pulling your energy into your center. Also with this pulling your energy into the center, you're going to feel the energies move because you no longer have something to yank you down in a dense way. So it's kind of like your roots or anchor are completely gone. And if you think across the globe, we have a lot of people who've just had so much of their world flipped upside down and all their roots gone, some of them quite literally having to get up and leave. And as we allow that to happen, it's like we're flowing. So if we think of being in water, we think of the difference between surrender and giving up and servitude. So if I were to jump in the middle of the ocean and have these big, huge waves coming up and going down, I have a few choices. One of them is I can go, oh, I'm gonna drown, bloop, 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 and I just give up and drown. I don't even try swimming because it's impossible, or I swim in circles fighting it. Either way, I'm gonna fight it and I'm gonna drown, or I'm going to sink to the bottom and I'm gonna drown. Now, if I'm in surrender mode, and I mean surrender to the flow, not surrender to a person, surrender to the flow, to the ease. All I need to do is roll on my back and float. And the more I can float, the easier it is. It doesn't use a whole lot of extra energy to float. It doesn't use nearly as much as it does to swim and go against the current. And it's not nearly using anything scary and panically emotion-wise by sinking. And so in this flowing, we are on the surface, and everywhere that the water decides to carry us, we go with it, just on the surface. And we stay immovable, yet the water can move us wherever it wants. And sometimes it might move us and add to the momentum, and we don't even have to do all that extra work. So the more centered you are, the more easy it is for you to actually get those things that you've been trying to manifest, or finding that sense of peace, or finding the things you desire, because you don't have to fight against it, and you're not having to use extra energy to create things happen. They're actually already flowing and happening in your direction. Why? Because you're already on the path and you're already in that current. So it's really easy for it to flow to you. Now, a lot of us, as we're flowing and we're enjoying that ease, we get to a place sometimes where we find ourselves not able to center. So remembering centering as connecting into ourselves so that all can flow around us and we can move to places and move ourselves to places without the control or distraction of others. Now, what about when we distract ourselves? So as we are moving forward in our purpose and our passion, a lot of times we can find ourselves where we're stuck with feeling spread out in a lot of directions. My duck says hello too. And when we feel spread out in a lot of directions, what it does is it makes this centered feeling not something that's easily obtained. In fact, you have fragments that are in all these other areas. Now, a lot of people say, oh, well, I can't help it. I'm an empath, or I can't help it. I'm a people pleaser, and I want to help everybody, and I want things to be easier. And I absolutely understand that. Recovering people pleaser, perfectionist, empath. Yes, I get it. However, if we don't reclaim those pieces of ourselves, then eventually over time, our soul becomes tired. We become tired. We become fragmented. We become susceptible to disease, especially ones of the nervous system, especially ones that have to do with the body being able to do its basic functions like the immune system and moderating temperature and nerves. And sometimes we'll get those fiery feelings, or our body parts will feel like they're suddenly numb or asleep. All of those are signs of having fragments of yourself too spread out. Often we usually can sense this because we'll say, man, I'm spread too thin, or I don't know where I'm going, and we get overwhelmed really easy. Sometimes finding the reason why we're spread so thin and in so many areas is the key to understanding how to correct it. So one of the main reasons that we distract ourselves and put ourselves in so many different areas is because there's something that we don't want to see or look at. If we try and come into our center and there's things that don't belong in that center, or there are traumas or violations in that center that we have ignored and suppressed, then we don't want to go to the center. If I've got my heart shut off and there's pain in my heart, I don't want to look at that. If I'm unsure of my identity and the core of who I am, I don't want to look at that. If I can't ever speak my truth and speak up, and every time I do, bad stuff happens, I'm not going into my center. Nope, I will go everywhere else. And that's part of why Rick and I decided to connect the 3 chakras, the solar plexus, the heart, and the throat. Because by connecting those 3, that's your core. Those 3 dance and play together and help to pull and embody all of ourselves. Sometimes I've seen powerful healers that see massive things and get great downloads. They have a very activated third eye and crown, which is why feeling grounded is something that is so far from them, because they're always up here. Why? Because something in here is shut off. And if anything in here is shut off, it can't communicate to our root chakra and our base of our body. And so we can't get grounded all the way through our toes. So we stay up here. Then I know other people who they shut down something here. They stay down in their base so they can't access their crown and their third eye. So all of the inspiration and connection to their divine higher self, to God, is all cut off. Because as it comes down, even if they get it, as it comes down, it goes down and it stops here, or it stops here, or it stops here. And as it stops, it doesn't have the ability to go into their beautiful creative organs and their sexual organs, and even the beautiful parts of ourselves where we're able to release and express sexually. And because we don't have that, we're not going to have that sense of connection with our body. So usually if we feel a disconnection in here, it'll actually show up down there, and it will show up in ways of maybe not even being able to have an orgasm, or utilizing, where sex and love are 2 different things, and separating the 2 out. So anytime you see a disconnect in your life, especially when it's between body parts and chakras, then you're going to notice that that's probably because there's something there that you're distracting yourself from seeing. You can't heal something you won't acknowledge. And so sometimes that's what we need, is just to acknowledge and speak it out. So I invite you to take a moment, and we're going to close our eyes, taking in a deep breath, hearing all the birds and the sounds around. Oh, it sounds like chaos, but it's not. It's exactly as it should be. And as we breathe into it, put your hands on your solar plexus, on your belly, just underneath your ribs. Feeling the core, breathe in and out. Feeling how connected you are to this center. Do you feel a great yellow light? Does it feel alive and full of creation? Is it safe to create here? Is there maybe a distraction that we've been using to keep ourselves from feeling through our gut? Oh, how we love those gut feelings. What's your gut telling you? What does she need? Or he? Next, we're going to go up to our heart. Put your hands on your heart. Feeling your heart beat. Feeling your first drum. Hello, heart. What's inside your heart? Does it feel open to receive and give love? Does it feel like it's connected and guiding? Does it maybe feel like it's silly and makes impulsive decisions? Is there something I'm distracting myself from in my heart? Is there something I don't want to look at? Oftentimes when we have heartache, we keep our hearts very closed. But we don't realize that by keeping them closed, nothing gets released, and that heartache just sits and it churns and it churns and it churns. Perhaps it's time to release some of that heartache. What is it that needs to go, heart? Maybe tapping your heart and saying to yourself, release, release, release. Next, place your hands on your throat. And you can place them however you feel. Sometimes this feels constricting and triggering, which can be really good because you can see, why is this scaring me? Why don't I like this? But place your hands on your throat, whichever form feels good. What is it that we haven't spoken? Are we speaking our heart? Are we speaking our head? Are we speaking our intuition? Are we speaking to people that don't deserve to hear? Or are we not speaking because nobody here deserves to hear? Are we safe to express, to sing, to moan, to laugh loudly, and let our joy convey to all who can hear? What's in your throat? Is there something you're distracting from in your throat? Are there memories or times coming up of times when you couldn't speak up, or you wish you had spoken up? Allow your throat to show you the way. I recommend rolling your hands upward. Nice deep breath out. Maybe a coo. Maybe yours is a scream. Maybe yours is a heavy moan. Maybe it's a song, but going upward and outward. And then take your hands down over your heart and carry that energy upward and outward. What would your heart say? Would your heart sing? Would your heart cry? Would your heart giggle? Would your heart say a bunch of obscenities and scream and put somebody in their place? Is there rage in your heart that needs to be spoken? It can be spoken. Now take your hands lower onto your solar plexus and carry it all the way up your sternum to your throat. Sternum to your throat. What is your core saying? Or maybe you can tap your sternum as you roll your hands up. What is it that I want to create? I am. What am I? Maybe declaring who you are. What am I? Am I brave? Am I centered? Am I creative? Am I focused? Am I playful? Am I sensual? Am I joyful? This is where the core of who we are. So what statements need to be spoken of who you are, of what you have to create in your world, of what is coming into your world, of what you're calling into your world. Our words are spells. They are powerful. Each word you speak goes off in energy and has the potential to be magnified and built on over and over again the more you speak them. So by you tapping into that solar plexus and rubbing your hands all the way up to your throat as you speak them, you're pulling that energy up and you're connecting your solar plexus, your heart, and your throat, and you're creating this circular movement as you go. I invite you to continue being in this space and connecting with each of these center points and seeing what is coming through, what feels good to be spoken. Even if you don't want to speak it with your words, speak it with your writing, taking notes or recording yourself, getting those words out, finding your passion. What is it that angers you? One of the things that angers me and is at the core of my mission is to heal the corruption in our species, this mental corruption and the wounds of the womb. And so if you want to hear me have a lot of passion, let's talk about corruption and how sacred things are hoarded out or sacred things are confused and twisted for control. That's going to get me wired up. So maybe allow yourself to fire yourself up in order to figure out what your passion is, to figure out what is inside that hasn't been expressed. What is it that you're expressing and complaining about the most? What is it that is so frustrating it makes your blood boil? Tap at your core, pull it through your heart, and speak it out. Is it, recent war things? Is it racism? Is it somebody being treated unfairly? My little bald niece was smacked in the back of the head at school and made fun of for being bald. Like, yes, I will speak that out and cut that child. Yes. I mean, not actually. But speaking out that rage sometimes has to be moved so that we no longer distract ourselves from seeing that piece of our center. Because if I have rage sitting right here, how am I going to want to be here? I'm not going to want to be here. I don't like rage. I don't like being mad. I'm going to move as far away as I can, which means I'm going to be all up in my head and all down in my pussy. And I'm not going to be in my center. So allowing yourself to speak out that rage, speak out anything that comes out. Even sometimes we surprise ourselves because we live in a world where if you're watching this video, you are in a world where you try and look for the positive. You're trying to improve yourself. You're trying to move forward. If you allow yourself to not go to this raging place and the rage is there or hurt, there's our chicken. Hens are for grace and support and nurturing, just so you know. But if you're in that place of anger and rage and you're not letting it out, you're not going to allow yourself to get back into your center. You're only going to expel yourself out. And if we pretend that we're not angry about something, it hurts us that much more because then we're not being honest and we can't look at what we're mad about and we can't move that energy. One of the lies that we tell ourselves, especially as light workers or healers or people wanting to heal or be positive and help, is that we're not allowed to be angry. But we are. Anger is a real emotion. And even some people go as far to say, oh, anger is just covering up a deeper thing. And it's not its own emotion. That's not true either. Anger is its own emotion. And it's fury and demand for something to be different. So what is it that you're demanding being different? Well, how can you change it if you don't speak it out? And yes, some of it we don't really have control over as one person. We don't. But allowing yourself to say, my body doesn't have to hold this energy. I am not responsible to hold and contain this emotion because it's only going to eat me up from the inside out. That's how a lot of our cancers are formed. That's how a lot of our disease is created, is this that negative churning energy that never moved because we never acknowledged it was there. And so hopefully tuning into these three centers and connecting in with those pieces can help you to feel a deeper sense of feeling centered as you go forward and you anchor in who you are, what you are, where you want to go, who you want to be, and allow the opinions of others to fall away. That can be the scariest thing sometimes, but it's really important to remember that those opinions are not a clear perspective opinion because nobody sees you the way you have the potential to see you or the way God gets to see you. Nobody understands you or understands what you've been through more than you. Everybody will look at you through their own filter and their own lens of the way they see themselves. And if that's the case, then nobody can truly judge you with a clear perspective. Every judgment, every influence is a misjudgment because they don't have all the information. How can we come to a conclusion that is clear and accurate and justice and justified if we don't have all of the information? So since no one can view you or judge you correctly, except for God, universe, yourself, if no one else can get all of that information except for those sources, then no one else can actually give you an opinion that is 100% pure and untainted. And if no one can give you an opinion that is 100% pure and untainted, the only opinion you can follow is the one that comes from here, here, here. Because that is the only thing you actually own, is your center, your core, who you are. I love you. I celebrate all of who you are. Even if you feel like it's wonky at days, even if in your center core is this wild child who runs barefoot. Oh wait, that's me. Even if it is this very conservative, loving numbers, desk working mama bear. Even if it is somebody who hasn't figured out who they are yet. I still love you and I celebrate you expressing the journey. Sometimes it takes a lot of wonky steps for us to figure out what we are and what we are not. But the more we can connect to these three pieces and the more we can say, oh, I feel scattered. What am I distracting myself from doing or seeing or being? Because sometimes there's a greater calling you and it's scary. It's so scary because people have opinions and they like to share them. But the idea is to not let those opinions dictate what you do. We said this before in one of our other kits. We'll say it again. It's not a matter of not caring what people think, because people will always have an opinion and you will always care what they think. It's human nature. Big black butterfly. Squirrel. It's a matter. It's a matter of caring what people think, but not allowing it and not allowing their opinions to dictate what you do or don't do. So you can care what people think and just not let their opinions dictate what you do or don't do, because nobody knows you better than you. I love you. I celebrate all your wonkiness. Happy centering, guys.